What's up, folks? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to build a very simple local AI voice assistant, all right? Which essentially means an agent AI thing within my computer that never gets out of my computer and essentially does a few tasks and actions for me. So we're going to have a few requirements for this model, for this AI agent assistant thing. The first one is going to be that we want to be able to control it by voice. So we're going to have some audio transcription going on. The second thing is that we want to be able to talk to it as well as perform commands and actions, meaning we want to be able to talk to it normally as we would with a simple voice assistant like, ChatGPT on your iPhone or Android. However, we also want to be able to, upon request, perform actions, commands, etc. We want to be able to we want the model to be able to execute tasks. For example, we want it to be able to create tasks in a task database. We want it to be able to create, read, edit, and delete files locally. We want it to be able to send emails. And we want the fully local setup, so both the audio transcription model and the model responsible for doing the hard thinking part should all be local models. And we want to be able to answer questions about personal notes and knowledge management. Essentially, we want the model to have some sort of RAG setup. If you don't know what RAG is, it's essentially retrieval augmented generation, which is like an infrastructure setup for connecting documents to large language models in a way that if a large language model has some context length or context window, which is the amount of text you can put inside the model of a certain size, and then the documents are bigger than that, nevertheless, you can still answer questions about that document with that model because the RAG system behind it allows it to do so. So for the first thing, for the voice control part, folks, we're going to need to use a model called Whisper, which we can download from Hugging Face. So I already have it set up here. So I'm going to click on this link and I'm going to show you. We're going to be using Whisper Large V3 Turbo. And the setup for this is very simple, folks. You just got to follow the instructions on this page. Essentially, we're going to create a virtual environment. We're going to install the packages necessary for running this model locally. And then we're going to copy this code for the setup of a model. And we're going to just make very simple modifications so that we can run it on our own setup rather than in some sample data set. Okay, so I can copy this, folks, and if you have no experience with, I'm going to paste this here. If you have no experience with setting up local environments, etc., it's super easy, folks. Like the first thing that you do is you go to, let me just get out of this page. So you can go to Anaconda or Miniconda. Like there are a bunch of options for packages that you can install easily on your machine, download to your machine, that allow you to create virtual environments, which is an environment within your machine that has its own dependencies for any Python application you want to build. So that allows you to control dependencies such that each environment has just the dependencies that it needs to run the application relative to that environment. Okay, so just go to Conda, download either Anaconda, which is the big package, or Miniconda, which is like the lighter version of that package, and then download that for your machine. And then once you've done that, you're going to be able to come to a terminal, and you're going to be able to run commands like conda, activate, environment, whatever. All right. And what you're going to do for this project is you're going to run conda create -n. You're going to name your environment something like Lucas is amazing. All right. And after you've done that, you're going to activate that environment. So conda activate Lucas is amazing, like a silly example. All right. And then once you've activated that environment, it's like you're inside that environment. So you can install packages inside of that thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to install pip install all of the stuff that Hugging Face was telling me to install over here. So pip install upgrade pip to upgrade the pip, which is the it's a package to manage the dependencies inside of that environment. And I'm going to install these applications as well, these packages as well, the transformers, data sets, etc., etc. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing. And I've already done that, but if you haven't, those are the things that you should do right now. And if you want to have a setup like mine, which is, as you can see, I'm using a Jupyter notebook inside of VS Code. It's actually inside of Cursor, but Cursor is VS Code. And to do that, it's very simple, folks. All you have to do is run pip install Jupyter, which is for Jupyter notebooks. Or if you want to have a minimal setup, you can just run pip install ipykernel. And then you're going to run python -m ipykernel install minus user minus name equal and the name of that environment. In the case of my official environment that I'm going to be using for this example, it's going to be called test.env. Once you've done that, you set up the kernel for the notebook. And setting up the kernel, it's like now you have a path to that environment that has all the dependencies for the project. Okay, so we can test that out by essentially running this first line of command here. I'm going to, which is like import these packages. Okay, so I'm going to comment this out. I'm going to run this, and now it runs. So folks, it runs because the imports worked. Okay, so that's it. Now that we've done that, folks, we're going to be running the rest of the code that we copied from the Hugging Face setup for the Whisper model. And super simple here, folks. The first, we're going to go line by line. So the first line here, folks, it's the device in which we're going to be running the heavy loading of the audio transcription. If I was on a Windows machine, I would use this line over here. Device equal CUDA, because if your Windows desktop or laptop have a GPU, you'd be able to use CUDA, right? If you don't know what CUDA is, look it up. It's something that allows you to send stuff to your GPU of your machine. GPU is where you can do parallelized actions in your computer, and it's much faster than your CPU. However, since I'm on a Mac, I'm going to use the metal acceleration shader stuff. So I'm going to set device to MPS because I am on a Mac. We're going to be setting data type to float 16, I guess. Float 16? Yeah, we're going to do float 16. Why not float 16? If something goes bad, then we can see it later. Now, folks, this is the model we're going to be using, Whisper Large V3 Turbo, right? And here is for loading and sending the model to the GPU. And then this processor, auto processor from pre-trained model ID, we're loading the processor for the model. And now we're setting up our little pipeline for this project, for this auto transcription model. We have the model, we have the tokenizer. Remember, tokenize is just something that takes up, text and breaks it down into a set of tokens. And there are different algorithms to do that. We're not going to get into it. And this is just the code for setting that up. It's nothing super complex. We're not going to use this dataset setup, folks. So we're not even going to need this dataset stuff because we're going to use a sample, folks, that's going to be an actual file that I have on my local machine. File, and now it should be here. Test audio file. There we go. And now, folks, we can run transcription and we can check if it's working. So now I'm running this, and hopefully it's going to work, and the audio transcription is going to be super duper wonderful, marvelous. Okay, beautiful. So yeah, and we can now move on. So now the next step, folks, is going to be to do the rest of the requirements. So the rest of the requirement is being able to talk to the model as well as perform actions, commands, etc. So for that, folks, it's going to be quite interesting. We're going to be using Llama 3.2, folks. Okay, because Llama 3.2 is like one of the most recently released models by Meta. We're going to go over to the page of the release of Llama 3.2. Release post. So it's revolutionizing edge AI, vision, etc. It's like a very powerful, capable model. It's especially good at something that we're going to need, which is called tool calling. And we're going to get into that in a second. And essentially here we see all the good stuff from the model. Essentially you have the 1 billion, 3 billion parameter model. We're going to use the 3 billion parameter model. And it's a super good model. It's from the Llama 3 series. We can see here the evaluations where these are the performances of this of the models across a bunch of benchmark tasks, which evaluate these models in different settings of challenges, exams, and contexts, like the MMLU or the IF-eval or the GSMAK, or the math dataset or the ARC challenge, etc. And we see that these models do well compared to other similar models, similar open source local models. Why do we care about this? We care because we want a model that can perform, relatively well for the tasks that we want, and we don't want anything like super complex. We want something fast. So we don't want to go with the 70 billion parameter model, which, although I could run in this machine, will make it kind of slow, so not ideal for our purposes. Okay? So how do we download this model easily without a hassle? What we're going to do is we're going to go to ollama.ai, folks, and I'm going to copy this and I'm going to put the requirement true, right? So this is interaction using LLM. So for that, we'll use Llama 3.2 with Llama. All right, folks. So Llama, folks, is a wonderful, wonderful software that allows you to easily download local models to your machine without any big issues. You can go to their models page and you can see all the models available, and they're really good. And you can see here, folks, that we have tools right here, which is what we care about, because this means that this model can do something called tool calling, meaning this model can execute actions that we allow it to execute. So we give it the capabilities like create a file locally on my machine, delete a file, edit a file, etc., etc., etc. So this model is great. We can click over here, folks, and we can take a look at the size of the model. And folks, remember, the size that we're seeing here is the quantized version of the model. Quantized version means that this model, it's not in its original size and shape, right? Because the weights of the model have been quantized, meaning we changed the precision of the numbers that are representing the weights of that model so that it could fit commercial hardware, all right? And there are many ways to download models like these. You can use Llama, you can use Llama CPP, you can use LM Studio. I just like Llama. It's very simple, easy to use, but there are many other alternatives out there. So to do that, all you have to do is you go to download here in Llama, you choose your setup, and then you click on download, and then now all you have to do is when you're on the terminal, you open up a terminal here, and you can run Llama run Llama 3.2. Oh, 3.2. And if you haven't downloaded the model previously locally to your machine, this command is going to do that for you. And if you have, like me, what's going to happen is it's going to run for like a couple of seconds, and boom, now we can talk to the model easily, super fast, as you can see. So I can say, tell me a joke, and we get a joke. Why don't X tell jokes? Because they crack each other up. That's amazing. All right, so now that you know how to do that, folks, it's very nice, because once you've done that, folks, what you can do is you can use Llama's Python package to integrate the usage of this model into your application. So we're going to be using Llama Python GitHub. So just that you know. So we're going to be using this Llama Python library. It's an amazing library, folks. It's super easy to use. We're going to just install it like we did the other stuff. So we can say pip install Llama, and I've already installed it locally on my machine. And now, folks, we're going to use that to interact with our model. So pip install Llama. I'm going to pull up the GitHub page here, so as a reference, folks, and I'm going to make this notebook available to everyone, so don't worry about it. And now, folks, I can run import Llama, all right? And if I go here on GitHub, I see how to call the model, which is very similar to the OpenAI API if you have used that before. So I can copy this, right? I can just print this over here. Instead of the Llama 3.1 model, I want the Llama 3.2 model. And I'm going to run this so that we see and test. And there you go, folks. We get a response, which is great. All right, folks. Now that we've done that, what we're going to do is super simple. We are going to set up this model, okay, so that we can first say something, and then what we say is going to be transcribed, sent to this model, and then we're going to get a response back from this model, and we are going to read it, and that's the interaction. So let's set that up in the simplest way possible just to see how that would look, okay? So the first thing that we have to do to start that off is to wrap this up into a little function, which is extremely simple. All I have to do is say def get response, okay? And we're going to write a function that takes up a prompt, okay? And returns a response using the Llama 3.2 model. So response is equal to that, ta-da-dee-ta-da-da, messages is this and that, pa-da-dee-pa-da-da. I guess this is looking good enough. Perfect. Messages. No, I don't like this indentation. There you go. All right. So this is looking okay. So now we can test this function. So we can say, what is the weather? What is the country known for having the best weather in the world? Let's ask some controversial questions. Why not? And There you go. It's subjective, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so the function is working perfectly. So folks, what we're gonna do is, okay, let's connect now the transcription to the model, and let's see if we can ask a question to the model and get that working. So to do that, all we need is first the ability to record our mic, take that and save that to a file, and then transcribe that file, send that to the model, etc. Okay, and that should be easy enough. I'm not 100% sure on how to do that, so I'm gonna see if I can do that with cursor. So write a simple Python function that records the mic and saves the recording locally to a file called prompt.mp3. So let's see. Okay, we're gonna use two packages, PyAudio and Wave. This is looking good. So we need to install these two packages. So let's install them. Pip install PyAudio. Okay, and pip install Wave. Beautiful. And now that we've done that, record audio, the duration of the recording, sample rate, channels, and chunk. Now folks, I'm not gonna concern myself with these parameters because once we move to the app version of this, to the UI version of this, we're gonna be using a package called Gradio. And in that package, we're gonna have the recording of the mic built into the package. So I might not even use the same dependencies that I did for this development phase, okay? But for now, it's fine. I'm gonna set the duration to 3 seconds. And that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna pop up here, and now we're gonna just record the audio, and we're gonna see if this thing works. Okay. I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna send some simple prompt. What is the meaning of life? Beautiful. So it's saved to a file called prompt.wave. Okay, great. And now let's test it out and see if it worked. So we have the prompt.wave. Beautiful. It's working perfectly. So now that this is working perfectly, folks, we're gonna use our transcription. So remember, when we did the first time, we just did this pipe, audio, right? So now let's wrap this up, okay? I'm gonna wrap this up into a simple function, and let's see what we get, okay? So we are going to just wrap this pipeline stuff, into a function like transcribe, okay? So I'm gonna say, okay, def transcribe, and then this is gonna take the file path for the audio. So audio file path, and then it's going to return the transcription of that, okay? So let's see if it works. Yep, it's working like a charm, folks. So now that this thing is working, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna say, okay, let's connect everything together now. We're gonna record the audio, and then we're gonna transcribe the audio to a file prompt.wave, and we're just gonna keep replacing that file. We're not gonna care about the specifics of the setup. And then after that, we are going to send that to the model. So prompt to the model is equal to the transcribe function, exactly, and then get response. So I'm gonna ask the model something, and then we're gonna get a response back, and we're gonna pay attention to how fast this is, okay? Because this is a fully local setup. And to do that, it's pretty simple. I'm gonna run that, and I'm gonna say, suggest 3 books I should read before I die. Suggest 3 books I should read before I die. There you go, folks, and now we're getting a response from the model. So step 2, done, folks. We are being able to record our audio, transcribe that, send that to the model, and get a response, which is awesome. Now that we've done that, folks, what was step 3? Well, the tasks that the model should be able to execute. This is where it gets interesting, folks. So we want the model to be able to create tasks in a task backlog. We want the model to be able to create, read, edit, and delete files locally. So let's start with these 2 first tasks, okay? I'm actually gonna copy all the tasks that we want the model to be able to execute. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put them right back here on the bottom. I'm gonna say, okay, so these are the tasks, okay? I'm gonna put this under like a little thing like this. Beautiful. So creating tasks in a backlog task database. So that should be simple. Let's write a function first called create tasks, okay? Create tasks database. You know what? We're not gonna create task database. I don't want the model to, we're gonna assume that the task database already exists as a simple CSV file, okay? So I'm gonna create that first. So creating the task DB first before writing the tools for the model, okay? So for that, we're gonna say create a Pandas data frame. If you don't know what Pandas is, it's a Python package for creating data frames, which are like table structures that you can interact with. You can create CSVs, etc. Super great. It's super famous. Create a Pandas data frame for a tasks database with with the columns task, status, creation date, deadline date, and I'm going to say creation date, completed date, that's it, and date. And that's it. For now, this looks good enough. So I'm going to click on generate. All right, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, this is looking decent. So I want to see what this thing looks like. And now we had an issue. Object has no attribute append. That's great. So that's our append new task. We created a task as a dictionary, and then tasks df. Task df was pd.dataframe, and it was trying to append like this, and then it didn't work. So let's just redo that. Redo it. Tasks df has no attribute append, so that we don't have to waste our own time rewriting this thing from scratch. There you go. This should work. There you go, folks. Now we have it. We created a task data frame, and now we concatenate. So this is a function to add the task, but the code to create a database was just creating a simple database with some columns, all right? And now this function here that was created on the bottom is going to be used down in the table. So I just want to take a look at the simple task database. There you go. It's a table with task, status, creation date, completed date, all right? So now that we've done that, we are going to create the task for creating tasks on this database, right? So let's set up. So this is going to be called a tool for adding a task, okay? Create a task and then creates a task. It's going to assume that the function, that the table has a certain structure, and that's fine. And I don't like this global variable over here. I'm not a big fan of that. I prefer this function to take in a tasks database, and then it concatenates and then returns that task database. There you go. This way, when we load that from a CSV with a different name or whatever, we're not going to have any issues. Okay, perfect. I'm also going to add some documentation to this function. We're going to know why I'm doing that in just a second. Add a task to the test database. Perfect. So, folks, now what are we going to be doing? We're going to be adding this capability to our AI voice assistant. And that's super simple to do. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to be using tool calling, folks. And tool calling, folks, is about giving LLMs the ability to perform actions, all right? And to do that, we just need to give the model awareness of what's available with some description. And then what the model does in return is learns how to call that capability if it deems necessary when a task is given to the model. That's all that it is. And obviously, I mean, these models are specially trained to output things as JSONs, which is like a special, which is a optimal, it's the best way to, right now, at least that's the standard right now in industry, to add these tooling capabilities, which puts everything into a nice dictionary, everything works fine, etc., etc. So let's do that. What we're going to do is two columns about giving LLMs the capabilities. So we're going to have to write a tool called add tasks to database. And folks, here's what we're going to do. For that, we need a proper formatting for creating these tools. Luckily, I've prepared like a few examples, so I'm going to copy here one of them, and we're going to rewrite it as create tasks database. So I'm going to show you here, folks, an example. And this is an example of a schema, folks, for a function, okay? A schema is just essentially like the structure, the skeleton of the function. It contains information like the type, which is function, obviously, the name of the function, what the function does, what are the parameters, what are the required parameters, and it describes, information about what goes in and what comes out, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to write one for adding tasks. So it's super simple. All we need to do is we're going to start with type, and we're going to do the first one by hand, folks, just so that everyone can see how simple it is, but then we're going to just use some automations for the rest, okay? And we don't even need to, because probably Cursor is going to complete most of it real quick, as you can see here. So I already did. So we added the name, add task, description, add task to test database. The parameters are, so the type of parameter for this thing is going to be add task, task df, and then task description. So task df is going to be like an object, which is going to be usually a Pandas data frame. And then task description is going to be a string defining the task, okay? So that's all we're going to do. So add task, objects, task description, type string, description, the description, etc., etc. And now the file name, so the properties are not file name, the properties are task description, perfect. And let's add the task df as well. So how do we do that? We go and we create another dictionary within properties. So we have properties. So I'm just gonna cheat a little bit. I'm gonna say add another parameter called tasks df, which is the Pandas data frame for the tasks database. So I don't have to write that myself. So we're going to write that up. There we go. Task def, task description. Beautiful. So that's wonderful. And now, folks, we're going to have to modify our getResponse function. So let's go back. We had this function here, folks, that I'm going to copy. And now I'm going to go down here. So we had this function that all it does is takes a prompt and sends a response back. But now, if we want the model to be able to execute on tools, we need to give that capability to the model. So what we're going to do is very simple, folks. We're going to add a little comma here. And we're going to say tools, and we're going to add that tool as a list of those dictionaries containing the schemas for the tools that the model should have access to. And in this case, I'm going to start with a simple to add tasks to database, and that's it. And now we're going to test this first by just prompting the model saying, add a task to the tasks database. And I just realized that tasks df is going to be, the model is going to assume tasks df already exists. I feel like this is silly to do like this. Tasks df is going to already exist, and it's not going to be necessary. We just want the task description, and we want the task description, and the rest is just going to be something that we set up outside, okay? So we say add a task to the task database. What does that mean? It means that the model should read the table from, let's say, a file like a CSV, and then update it by running the add task function, right? So that's it, because it's going to call add task. It's going to give that description. That's it. And all we have to do is modify this. Add task is going to take in just task description. That's it. And it's going to assume that there's a task data frame named tasks df, and maybe later we can change that up. But for now, I think that this should be good enough. Perfect. Now that we've done that, what we're going to do is we're going to test it out. We're going to see if it works. So we're going to say add a task to the task database. And we're not going to say that. We're going to say create a task to create a local voice AI assistant. All right. And that's all we're going to do. And we're going to see what happens. So I'm going to run this. It might give an error. I don't know. So it returned an empty string. Interesting. Why? Because we did not set up something important, I think. Because, folks, what we were expecting here, actually, that's the reason why we get an empty string, folks, is because I return response message content, which usually returns the content that the model returned back. But when the model makes a call to a tool, what is returned is not going to be the string, it's going to be something called the tool call. So if I remove this from the get response and send this again, folks, this is what we get. Check it out, folks. We get this dictionary answer, which contains the role, who's executing what, the content, which should be the prompt sent by the model if the model sent any content, and then the information that a tool call was made, meaning I am calling a tool right now. And we're like, oh, okay, beautiful. What tool are you calling? And then it's saying, look, I'm calling this tool at task, and inside of it, you're going to say create a local voice assistant. Look at that. Beautiful. The only thing, folks, is that we have to now write an extra function to we're going to have to edit our function to process this information, this tool call here. Okay? So that's super simple. What we're going to do is we're going to say, look, I'm going to say add functionality to process a tool call, which, if present, should be in this format. Make it so that the right function is executed if the tool call is made. So I'm just going to run that. It's going to be relatively simple. There you go. That's what I was expecting. So, folks, if the tool calls is in the response, which should be because it's a key in the dictionary being returned, right? And actually, it's a response message, not response, right? Because if it was just response, so if, there we go, if tool calls in response message, for tool call in response message tool calls, we're going to say if tool call function name equal add task, and then we're going to load that, we're going to load the payload for the function. And we don't need the JSON loads here. Tool call function, yeah, we don't need that. We can do tool call function arguments, task description, and we're going to run the function called add task given what's made by the model. If not, what happens? Else, what we're going to do? We're going to just return, just response message content. All right, folks? That's all we're going to do. And if it is, we're going to say that, and we're going to say then task added, whatever. Yeah, for this particular function. And that's it, folks. That's what we're going to do. So I'm going to load up this new get response, and we're going to name this get response with tools. Okay. And now we're gonna come over here, and I'm going to say get response with tools. And now let's see what happens. Okay, now cannot access local variable test there where it's not associated with a value. All right, that makes sense because I'm calling this function add task, and I remove that global from here, so it's not identifying the tasks df. So what we should do is, I guess I'm going to put global task df over here again. And now we're going to be able to change that data frame from within the function call. So I'm going to run that again. And now, folks, a task was added. So we can now check our tasks database, and we see create a local voice AI assistant, the status not started, edit, complete, etc. Okay? And what I would do is I would continue to add functionality just about this task management, like update the status of the task and complete the task, which it should just put the status to finished and the completed date to whatever date is the date of finishing the thing. But for now, we're happy with just creating a task, okay? So that we can add some more extra functionality and we can move on. So the next thing we're going to do, folks, is we're going to move on to task number 2. Task number 2 was actually not one, but multiple, about creating, reading, editing, and deleting files locally. Okay, so again, folks, we're going to have to follow the same process. We're going to have to create a tool in this structure. We're going to have to update this function so that it integrates with the new tool that we have. And then we're going to test it out to see if it works. So let's do that right now. So the tool schema for create file. And folks, I've already prepared all these tools here, as you can see, so that we don't have to waste time again writing everything from scratch. So create file, read file, and delete file are already here. So instead of wasting your time and mine, I'm just going to copy this from this file because I want everything to be within this Jupyter Notebook for right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say tool schema. I'm just going to call it tool create file. Okay, tool create file is this. Beautiful. And now I'm going to say tool read file. So this should get out of here. And now this should be called tool read file. There you go. And this one should be called tool delete file. Beautiful. And now, folks, here's what we're going to do. We're going to say tools is equal to tools create, read, delete, and the tool for adding the task. So now we have all these tools organized in a list. And now, folks, we're going to take that function that we wrote before. I'm going to just copy it, and I'm going to update it here, folks. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add more functionality to process the remaining functions. But not only that, folks, we're going to have to also write the functions to create, read, and delete files. So I'm just going to write writing functions to create, read, edit, and delete files. And I just realized that we added create, read, delete, but we did not add edit capabilities. So to do that, what we're going to do is I feel like we can read file format and then edit. Yeah, so let's, we're going to create tool edit file. We're going to create that schema. And the schema is going to be relatively simple. It's going to be a function for editing a file, which is going to take in the file name. And it's going to take in the content that should be in the file instead. And then they are going to be required parameters for that function. And now, yeah, we're going to integrate that into the tool, like I'm doing right here. Beautiful. And now we have our tools, which is awesome. And now, folks, that we have these functions and they actually, now that we have the schemas, let's actually write the functions, which we could have written before. So we're going to just, I'm just going to just quickly move through stuff here with cursor, os.remove, all right. So import OS for removing files. So delete, editing a file. We're using the W instead of W plus. Okay. Yeah. Edit a file would like replace the contents of the file. And yeah, that's fine. We're not gonna have like an edit file, like an update file right now, because that will require some special stuff. But this should be fine. Read, create, edit, delete. Wonderful. And now, folks, let's add the functionality to, let's add a bunch of elifs to process all of these functions. So one for create, for read, for edit, and for delete. I think we have it all. And now, folks, we're going to test all of these functionalities, and we're going to see if it works the way that we expected. So I'm going to come over here. And we're going to say, okay, get a response with tools. And we're going to say, create a file called test.txt with the content hello world. Let's test that out. And let's run that. All right. So I'm getting task edit. That's not a good sign, folks, because that means that the model made a confusion regarding what was the correct tool call. And the correct tool call made was the add task. So if I go now to tasks df, yeah. So the model made a mistake in the tool calling, and this is the issue of working with local models, folks, is that we're not going to have that reliability of a closed source model, but there are things that we can do, okay? So we can just change a little bit. We can change a little bit the wording to see if we can get it right, and then we just, we get used to using this model and talking to it in a more descriptive fashion. So this is not a task. Just create a file. Actually, I'm just gonna say create a file directly, okay? And still getting a mistake. All right. Maybe we didn't run this. Let me see if we ran this. If tool calls a message, okay. And we're gonna run this again. We're gonna test this again. Okay, so the model continues to make that mistake, which is very annoying. So what we're gonna do is, unless, folks, this is the mistake. Because even though we did everything about the process of like all the functions and the schemas, we did not update the tools for the model. So obviously the only tool the model could use was to add tasks to the database. So all I said about open source local models, forget about that. I was being hasty, because now I'm just gonna say tools equal to tools, and now I think it should work pretty well. So let's see. We're gonna use the prompt that we used initially. Create a file called hello world. And folks, there we go. And now we can go to the file, and it was created, which is awesome, right, folks? And now, folks, what we're gonna do is we're gonna test this functionality with audio, all right? And I'm gonna say, edit this file, test.txt, and put it there. Lucas is a big fan of Elmo from Sesame Street, whatever. Let's say something random. So record audio. I'm gonna say like duration equal to 5, prompt, and then get response with tools, all right? Luca edit the file test.txt with Elmo is amazing. All right, so kind of file content, hello world. That's weird. Because the model only, I think the model understood read file. So folks, I'm seeing that it's a good idea for us to do this. Look, creating file, there you go. And now we're gonna come over here, reading file, there you go. This way we know which function was being called at each point. And now let's try that again. I'm gonna say, edit the file test.txt with the wordings, pancakes are better than waffles. Edit the file test.txt with pancakes are better than waffles. Yes, folks, it worked. That's amazing. That's very nice. And you can see that it was, okay, so it created a new file instead of editing the previous file. But I'll take it. I'll take it. For now, at least it understood that what was the correct file. And I guess that if we're editing a file but replacing all the contents inside, that's the same as creating. So we can actually just, I'm gonna delete this edit file functionality now, because one thing about using tools is that we wanna have the least amount of tools possible so that we don't get any kind of like interference of tool calling between different tools that have similar functionalities. And that's a cop-out on my end, folks, but we want something that works right now, right? So tools here, and now we get the response. So this is working pretty well, right? We have all those capabilities, and I wanted to do the remaining functionality, sending emails, fully local setup, and answering questions. But this video is getting kind of super duper long. So what we're gonna do now is maybe I'll do a part 2, but right now I'm gonna try to move this to an actual Gradio app, just so that we can, see this functionality kind of evolve a little bit. So now that we have that, folks, we have the function to handle the tool calling. We have the model capabilities down. We have the auto description down. Everything is working pretty well. So I'm going to create a new file here, and this is going to be called Local AI Voice Assistant with Gradio.py. All right, whatever the name. I'm not very good with names. And folks, all we're going to do is we're going to take all of the stuff that we've done before, and we're going to just integrate everything into this into this app, okay? I've already done this a little bit, so I'm gonna, just for simplicity's sakes, I'm going to copy the stuff that I've already done. So just completely ignore me copying stuff right now. I'm gonna copy not everything, but most of the things, and I should not have done like this. I'm just gonna copy this. I'm gonna put it here. And the reason why I copy is because I wanna leave that file for something else. And we're gonna just make sure that that we have all of those functionalities, okay? So, and I'm gonna actually delete some of this stuff. Yeah, get response, delete create. We're gonna copy from our notebook. Pipeline is fine. Transcribe and respond. Get response. Create a response. Get response with tools. Thank you. Create test table. We're going to be using a different one, which is we're going to be using the one that we just built. And the demo interface, that's all I care about, because this is the stuff that I never remember how to do. The rest is going to be very simple. So folks, let's go step by step so that it's just easy to integrate, okay? So I'm going to put this on the side, and I'm going to go to our notebook. From this notebook, folks, what we're going to need? We're going to need the code for transcribing stuff, right? To processing our prompt, sending that to the model with the correct tools, and then processing everything and wrapping this up into a nice little app. So let's try that out. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the pipeline line. So let me see here, pipeline. There you go, folks. Because this is the code for processing stuff, processing the audio quickly. And to do this part, folks, I'm going to device equals to set, model tokenizer, etc., etc. Once I've downloaded everything, I don't really even need the rest of this stuff. So we're gonna device equals pipeline, yeah, we're just gonna need pipeline, folks, and we're gonna automatic speech recognition, OpenAI Whisper Large V3 Turbo, Torch data type float 16, device MPS. Yeah, so this is just gonna be our transcriber, all right, folks? Then we're gonna have a function called transcribe and respond, which is going to take in the audio input directly from Gradio and then transcribe that. And then we're going to generate a response using the get response with tools. So we need that. So we're going to say get response with tools. There we go. Get response with tools. There we go. And get response with tools should be right here. There you go. This is our updated version. And I'm going to copy all of that. And I'm going to put it right here, folks. So that functionality is here, as well as the functionality for doing the actual tasks, right? The creating, editing, file, etc., which I'm also going to paste right here. I don't have to do duplicate imports of OS, so let's remove that. And now, folks, that I've done this part, so I've added all the functionality to create, read the files, etc. I've added the functionality to transcribe stuff. I've added the function that handles the tool calling. Let's import Llama, that's already working. Let's get the add task function. So def add task, and beautiful. And now with this one, all we need to do is add it here. Make sure that we have Pandas installed locally, PD, pa. We have to load datetime for the datetime stuff. So from datetime port datetime, I think this should work. Task description, great. This should have a tasks data frame. So the tasks data frame, folks, this is what we're going to do. The add task is going to load from a local file called tasks.csv. All right. So I'm going to take the tasks data frame that I have over here. I'm going to say, okay, save tasks df to CSV. There we go. Tasks df to we're going to save it. Boom. So now we can load it from here. All right. We have Gradio already going on. We got the tools, and now we need the tools, folks. So the tools are going to have those schemas that we've talked about, right? So remember these tools? So we're going to load this, folks. And what I like in this approach is to have a special file called tools.py. And in this file, I'm going to comment this stuff from a previous version of this. And I'm going to call this tools, like big like this. And then I'm going to come back here and I'm going to say from tools, import tools, okay? And now on the structure response stuff, I'm just going to name this with all of the letters capitalized, which is just the standard when you have like some constant that, you know, it's going to be loading from somewhere else. And I think that now, folks, we should be almost good to go. I think we get the response and we're going to be able to test the app now. So I'm going to just delete these things now. I'm just going to remove these things from here. So we have all the functionality. And now let's do the Gradio stuff, which I never remember. So I already have here kind of set up. So I have the interface. The transcribing response is going to be, we have the function to transcribe and send to the model, get response back. The inputs are going to be, you see, this is going to be recording from our mic or from a MP3 file or audio file, okay? And then the outputs are going to be a text box and also a data frame that's going to show us the task database, so the task that we're doing in the moment, okay? And task database, I think that this is looking pretty neatly. And get response, and we can test this out and we can see what happens, okay? So let's run this. So I'm going to run Python local AI. And actually, we're going to run it with Gradio, folks. And remember, if you don't have Gradio installed, pip install Gradio, all right? We're going to run Gradio local AI so that when I make changes to the script, it actually changes automatically in the app. We don't have to rerun this every time. So now it's saying name error to create file is not defined. That's okay because we've loaded everything from this. So to create file, I think this is in the tools.py. Let me see. There you go. Yeah, that makes sense, I guess. Okay. Yeah. So this should have been called to create file. Yeah, to create file. And this should be called tools like this. And to add tasks to DB is this one, to add tasks to DB, which is the schema for that one that we just did. So let me just go find that real quick. There we go. We got to just find that tool to add the schema to add the task. There you go, this schema right here, folks. So I'm just going to go back to tools. I'm going to put this right here. And now, folks, this should be good to go. And we can run this again. So let's try that again. And folks, I'm going to put this on the left. And on my right, we're going to see the app. Okay, so I'm going to load locally here. I'm going to here. And now, folks, we have a simple app that hopefully is going to be able to do all these amazing things. And let's see if it works, okay? We're going to say, let's start with something like, I don't know, create a file named lucas.txt with the contents testing voice assistant. Create a file named lucas.txt with the contents testing a voice AI assistant. All right, so I don't seem to be capturing the audio. I think it's because I'm using this microphone right now to talk to you folks. So I'm going to try something different. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to change the mic to be the built-in for my MacBook Pro. Create a file named lucas.txt with the contents testing a voice AI assistant. Still doesn't seem to be working, folks, which is a bit sad. So for this first example, folks, let's upload from a file. So I'm going to upload from the prompt, from the file that we just created. So I'm going to go here to my content. I'm going to go here to local. No, that's not the one that I wanted to go to. Local. There we go. And should be a prompt.wav file. So I'm going to send this prompt. Okay, so now we have the prompt loaded as an audio file, folks, just so that we can test this. And I'm going to submit. And let's see, folks. So we're going to see the transcription, the response. Let's see what happens. So we're loading, we're processing, we're doing it. And okay, we hit an error. That's a little bit frustrating, I'm going to be honest. Cannot unpack non-iterable, non-time object, get response with tools, okay. Cannot unpack a non-iterable, non-type object. Okay, so it seems like get response with tools did not return something that made a lot of sense. So let's see why. Get response with tools. And then task table. Yeah, because there's no get response with tools does not return task table, right? So task table is not going to be there. So task table is not going to be there. And we're going to remove that. So we're not going to be seeing the task table yet. So I just updated the code. So I'm going to submit again, folks. Let's see if it works this time. It should work now. And no, it did not. Can only join an iterable because response is not an iterable. Okay, fine. I'm just going to say return like response. Okay. Yeah. And response with tools and stuff. Yeah, exactly. It should give us. And also when we return, let's always return something, right? So we're going to return task added. Exactly. We're going to return. No. Yeah, we're going to return this. Every time we're going to return something so that we don't have issues at the level of the app itself, okay? Okay, so now when we submit this, let's see if it works this time. Oh, still having an error. File created test.txt. Didn't receive enough output values. Wanted outputs, something, receive outputs, string and something, something. File created. Okay, so it seems like the action was executed, but didn't receive enough output values. Needed 3, received 2. So let's see why it needed 3. So transcribing response, audio input, So this one send out 2, transcribe and respond, but when it's called, it's demanding 3 because we set the outputs to 3. You see, folks? So we're going to delete this one because this is not going to be one of them. And now it should work. So now hopefully it's going to work. All right. So let's submit that again. And yes, folks, now it actually did the thing. So we're going to go to test.txt. Pancakes are better than waffles. So let's try something different. I'm going to try again with the mic. Let me see if I can do it with my AirPods. Let's see if with the AirPods I can do it. Create a file named lucas.txt with the contents testing a voice AI assistant. Still doesn't work because of some audio issue annoyance. So let's, what we're going to do to solve this is I'm going to go to my sound input here on my machine. I think I know what the issue is. I'm going to change the output now, not to go to my AirPods Pro and to go to the Scarlett thing. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to record again. Create a file named lucas.txt with the contents testing a voice AI assistant and making a video. And now we're going to submit and we're going to see what happens. So now it seems to have worked, folks, which I'm very happy about. Let's see Lucas. And there you go, folks. It works. So, folks, I think I'm gonna be staying here for now. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you next time. Cheers.